Oh my goodness, welcome back. Today I'm going to be reacting to words. I'm going to be reacting to a video called Top 10 Weird Rulings Interactions by the Dual Logs. This was recommended to me by someone in my Discord. If you ever have any videos that you want to recommend for me to react to, please do so. I already think this is going to piss me off because my autistic brain, rules are rules, except Konami sometimes decides the rules aren't rules. So top 10 weirdest ruling interactions. Let's get mad together. Maybe we learn something. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what the vibe is. Let's do it. I have my emotional support bunny for this. For top 10 weird rulings interactions.
Yu-Gi-Oh has been infamous for being a lawyer game. The rules are incredibly complex, and making mistakes is an inevitability for essentially every player. However, despite being frustrating, several of these rulings are fascinating, and many players enjoy learning more about the finer aspects of how the game works. So today, we're going to go over some of the strangest rulings we could come across and explain how they work. And starting off at number 10.
Okay, straight to the point. I'm curious, a lawyer game, is that just because, like, is the implication because it's like you have to know, like, well, actually, Konami ruled back in 1975 that you do have to shower with soap in order to join in on the locals. I guess like a little bit of pushback on that, because if you are getting into Yu-Gi-Oh, when I was first getting into Yu-Gi-Oh, there was definitely the conversations around, oh, hello, it being a very difficult to learn game. And while I do not think it is an easy game to learn, I think giving it this threshold of like, oh, you must have a Kim K lawyer brain to do this game. No, I think anyone can play Yu-Gi-Oh. There is, at a locals I went to, someone has their child, their literal under 10 years old child, playing the game and learning and understanding. And can they do everything? Like, am I saying you can do everything perfectly? No. And the more competitive you want to get with it, the more rulings and, like, yes, there can be some complexities in it, but like, we don't all have to be Kim K to play this game. We don't. Okay. Anyway, so let's see. What are starting off on number 10?
We have Curse of Fiend. This is one of the strangest cards Yu-Gi-Oh has ever made. It has the effect where, during the standby phase, you can change the position of all monsters on the field.
Oh, wait, hold on. I think I need to turn off caption so I can read the card. Change the battle position of all attack position monsters on the field to defense position, and vice versa. Easy. These positions cannot be changed during the turn this card is activated except by the effect. Okay. Why is this weird? Why is this going to be weird?
And their battle positions cannot be changed for the rest of this turn except by card effect. Sounds simple, right? Well, it would be if Curse of Fiend wasn't a normal spell card. These spells can only be activated during the main phase when there's nothing else on the chain. So there's no way to activate Curse of Fiend during the standby phase. If this was a quick play spell, this wouldn't be an issue, as you could just activate it during the standby phase as spell speed too. But obviously that won't work here. So how do you even use this card? Well, the official ruling is that you have to set the card face down during your main phase, and then you can activate it during your next turn standby phase. This is very interesting because that's not how normal spell cards work. If you set a normal spell during your main phase, you do not gain the ability to activate it during the standby phase on your next turn. This is just as illegal as just activating it directly.
Oh, I didn't finish reading the card. I was like, why are we talking about standby phase? You can only activate this card during your standby phase. Konami, why? Konami, why? I'm already mad. I knew it. I knew we were going to watch this video and I was going to be like, what the hell? What do you mean? What do you mean Konami made a normal spell that can only be activated during your standby phase? So you have a turn, you set this. And yeah, normal spells you don't get to activate during standby phase because they're not at spell speed. I should learn the actual spell speeds. I just know that it's like, well, you can't. Spell speed 3, 2, 1, blast off. I don't know what it is. Okay, so you set it, you go a whole turn. No one plays this card, right? Was this card ever... Who plays this card?
From your hand like a quick play spell. Still, this is how the card is meant to be played, despite the fact this makes no sense whatsoever. Curse of Fiend has to be one of the weirdest cards Konami has ever printed. At least we can sleep easy knowing it will never be meta viable, as it was always worse than other options for changing battle positions. And at number 9, we have Interrupted Kaiju Slumber. More specifically,
I am just now beginning to understand the power of a kaiju with Thunder Kaijus for Blitzkrieg. I also feel I need to just yap about the current state of the game because Omega and just everything's been making me a little sad lately because my stuff keeps getting lava golemed. Or whatever that Mitsu one is. Anyway, Interrupted Kaiju Slumber says, destroy as many monsters on the field as possible. Then special summon in attack position 2 kaiju monsters with different names from your deck. 1 on each side. Each side of what? The field? Wait, 1 on each side. Like your opponent and me. That, Raina, use your brain. Let's think about this. That would make more sense. Okay, 1 on each side. Like my opponent gets 1, I get 1. But they cannot change their battle positions and must attack if able. During your main phase, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard. Add one kaiju monster from your deck to your hand. Okay. So I give you 1 in defense, I give me 1 in attack, and then I have to attack into it. And then during my main phase, but not this main phase, the next main phase, I can banish this card to add a kaiju. Why?
How it defies a very basic ruling that, in of itself, confuses many players. Let's start with that ruling. In Yu-Gi-Oh, you cannot activate a card that cannot fully resolve at the point of activation. A good example of this is a card with a search effect with no targets remaining in your deck. If there's nothing you can add off of a Rhoda, you simply can't...
Oh wait, yeah, like you can't do fail to find in Yu-Gi-Oh. So, but you can do delayed, like... Magnuma says search during the end phase. So what is not able to be resolved? Is it the during your main phase except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard part?
Not activate it. This differs from other TCGs, but it's not that hard to remember or understand once you hear the ruling. The bigger problem comes in with floodgates. Any floodgate that prevents you from controlling or summoning monsters with specific types or attributes has very annoying interactions with this ruling. These cards are often said to be able to see into the future because you can't summon a monster that would break this restriction.
Yeah, that killed me. Like there can only be 1. I was like, but if I link off into a different type of monster, now I still only control 1 monster. And exactly what this video is saying is like, but what if we saw in the future, and what if we knew that the type of monster that you were going to get was a different type, but because it would be the same. Yeah. Also, that is annoying.
Even if summoning it would result in no longer breaking the restriction. To help that make more sense, if Gozen matches in play and you control both a Sangan and a Karibo for some reason, you can't link them off into a Nightmare Phoenix because you're currently locked into Darks. While they wouldn't be on the field when you actually summoned Phoenix, the game checks if you're allowed to summon it while you have the monsters on the field. So you're currently locked out of the summon at that time. This is where Interrupted Kaiju Slumber becomes relevant. This normal spell destroys all monsters on the field, then lets you summon a Kaiju monster from your deck to each player's field, and makes them battle each other and locks them into their battle position.
I'm sorry, sometimes my brain... 1 on each side. I literally thought it meant like the left side and the right side. Like, I don't know why I was having like Pokemon visions of like Rayquaza and Groudon and what's the fish one that hate Kyogre. It's like, you gotta keep them separate. They hate each other. 1 on each side. No, it makes sense. Well, your opponent gets 1, you get 1. That makes more sense.
The thing is, all Kaiju monsters have the effect where you can only control 1 Kaiju monster along with their other stated shared effects. So what happens if you try to activate Slumber while a Kaiju is on the field? Now, from what you've just learned, you would think this would work the same way as one of the other floodgates. Sure, at the time you would summon the Kaijus on field would be destroyed, but that shouldn't matter from what we've just learned. Except for some reason, just this once, it does matter. This seems to be a case of Konami said so, as to why you're allowed to do this, despite this not being the case for any other situation. And at number 8, we have Destructive Darumukar.
I hate Konami said so. Konami said so is the worst. And I feel like so much is Konami said so because even though if we come up with like a logical explanation as to why, I'm like, okay, what was the ruling? What was the ruling I just learned where I was like, oh, okay. Picture this. I'm playing Fairy Tale. I'm trying out the new Regulus stuff. I have Empire of Endymion. My opponent, Murakumo's, and I negate it, rename it, Fairy Tale Wallet, whatever. But afterwards, I was like, wait, I have Empire of Endymion. I have a Regulus in hand. Could I have sent the Regulus from hand to prevent destruction? And they were like, yeah. But fun fact, tidbit, little sprinkle for you. If that Regulus was on field, you can't send it to prevent destruction. And I was like, why? And I was like, because it's marked for destruction. I was like, but you can tribute stuff that's marked for destruction. You can do all sorts of other stuff that's marked for destruction. Something being marked for destruction doesn't mean like it can't leave the field. It can't do anything. I was like, wait, and it was like, well, you can't use a card that's marked for destruction to keep other things from being destroyed. Why? Actually, I didn't let him finish explaining, because I was like, oh, Konami said so. Konami said so? Okay. I don't care if there's another reason. That's dumb. I knew this video was gonna rulings make me sometimes irrationally mad. I think rationally mad actually, because rules should be rules. And then we'd be breaking the rules. I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm taking it on you. Okay. Number 8.
Cannon versus Towers monsters. First, let's explain what these cards do.
Okay, I'm sorry. Lance was playing this Karma Cannon in, I believe, Enneacraft, and it was not great. Okay, Karma Cannon, great for him, not for me. Changes many monsters on the field to face down defense position. Then if either player controls a face-up monster, they must send all face-up monsters they control to the graveyard, aka all your links. Cannot be special summoned, requires 3 tributes to normal. This card's normal summon. It is unaffected by spell trap effects and by activate effects from any monster whose original level rank is lower than this card's current level. Blah, blah, blah. So it's unaffected. Change as but it's they must send. So, right, I'm assuming Karma Cannon, you have to send your tower because you're sending it. The card's not making you send it. The evil being that now lives inside of you that was placed there by the card is making you send it.
Karma Cannon is a normal trap card with the effect where you change all face-up monsters in the field to face-down defense position. Then, if there are any face-up monsters left, each player sends all face-up monsters they control to the graveyard. This will only send link monsters to the graveyard, as they can't be flipped face down or put into defense position at all. Towers is a more broad term, and refers to any monster that is unaffected by card effects. These are typically very difficult to get rid of, and for a long time, basically the only way any deck could get rid of them consistently were with the Kaijus, because tributing the opponent's monster was the cost of summoning the monster, and not part of an effect. These cards are not only immune to any effect that would target them, but any effect that would destroy or banish them or do anything to them, even without targeting, would still fail to affect these monsters. You may think that there just aren't any effects out there that can out towers, but there is a type of card effect that can still help you deal with them. Cards like Share the Pain, which makes your opponent tribute one of their monsters on their field, technically doesn't affect the monster or the board. This means that they can be used to directly force the opponent to tribute their Towers monster. A very important detail about Karma.
That's my girl, that's my Pearly. Wait, was I right? Is this a weird interaction, but did I know it? Because it's making you tribute it, therefore the card's not affecting it. It's the evil being in your soul that's making you do it.
Canon is that the entire effect doesn't target the opponent. Rather, the effect to flip all monsters affects monsters, and the second effect to send all face-up monsters affects players. This means that the Towers monster won't get Book of Moon when resolving the first half of the effect, but will be affected by the second half of the effect, making Karma Cannon a 1-card answer to essentially any Towers. This was actually meta-relevant as well, thanks to Labyrinth being able to search any normal trap card for the best situation possible, as well as the card being good against the link spam decks. And at number 7, we have Revealing
I knew that. Stake your soul. Reveal one monster in your hand, special summon a Vanquish Soul monster found with the same attribute with a different name from your deck. Okay, so we're talking about can't reveal a revealed card. Whoa, wait, what?
Revealed cards. There are a number of cards that require revealing either themselves from your hand, or other cards in your hand to use their effects, like the Vanquish Soul archetype, or cards like Lord of the Heavenly Prison. The way these cards work is very simple, and there's nothing confusing about them at all. However, there is a bit of a strange interaction with other cards that reveal cards in your hand for extended periods of time. For example, if your opponent activates a card called the Eye of Truth, which will require you to reveal your hand, you will not be able to reveal any of those cards for any other effects. This means that Eye of Truth is technically a hard counter for Vanquish Soul, though no one would actually try this thanks to how terrible the card is and how easily it would be countered. Regardless, this is a very strange interaction. Almost no one would guess that this is how this even works. After all, when you reveal a card from your hand, you can reveal the same card from your hand later in the same chain for another card's effect. On top of that, most players probably don't imagine a card being revealed as being a state of that card.
Okay, something I'll say about this video that I like is that it does seem like, yeah, there's some weirdness, but there's some stuff to actually know. Like the, if you're forced to tribute, it affecting the player, not affecting the card. And also, I mean, yeah, like I don't know when this is going to come up, but this isn't some like, I did a reacting to rulings. I watched the video, who was it? I think it was Distant Coder with like Magic players. And that one kind of pissed me off because I was like, what are these? Don't exist. Like these rulings aren't real. Like they're real rulings, but like in the state of the game. This is information. This is like a party trick. Like I'm going to remember this information. And if it ever comes up and I'm like, you know, your hand was revealed, you can't reveal it to do the effect. Like that'd be cool.
They likely imagine revealing a card to just be showing it to the opponent. And even if you've shown it to them once, that doesn't mean you can't show it to them again. This isn't how the game views it though, and that has to do with a very small technical detail. If you were to reveal a dark monster to your opponent for 2 separate Vanquish Soul effects, that means you would reveal it, put it back into your hand where your opponent couldn't see it, and then reveal it again. Even if you revealed a certain dark monster this way, you can reveal it twice and your opponent won't know if you have 1 copy or 2. So there is some nuance here in reasoning for this ruling, but that doesn't change the fact that it's very unintuitive. And at number 6, we have effects that resolve at one point, but apply their effects later. This is most common on cards like Mirrorjade the Ice Blade Dragon. This card has the effect where, if it leaves the field because of an opponent's card, you can destroy all monsters your opponent controls during the end phase. This effect does activate, but it doesn't apply until later in the turn.
Okay, there was something that came up. Oh man, I was having a ruling conversation. I talk a lot about Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm realizing like a lot of my time I'm just being like, why? Like, maybe that's why these videos sometimes irritate me, because I'm like, I do this in my free time where I'm just like, what is happening? Something about how Mirrorjade, I think, interacts with the Fallen, not Fallen, and the Virtuous, Mind Shuffle, Ritual of Light and Darkness. Ritual of Light and Darkness. So, many of the, I think both of the Ritual of Light and Darkness ritual monsters, or at least one of them, is unaffected unless you target it. But, so Mirrorjade does not directly target. It just says, I'm assuming what's in yellow is what it says on the card, but let me just look at the card. You can destroy all monsters your opponent controls during the end phase of this turn. So it is not activate. Hold on. I need to pull up, I think, what the card is. Okay, yeah. I'm pretty sure that this, I think this came up because my boyfriend was watching a video that was explaining these interactions, and then I was like, I don't want to, it's like first thing in the morning, man. I'm already getting confused. Turn it off. But I'm pretty sure it was this. So Black Luster Soldier, unaffected by your opponent's activated effects unless they target this card. But Mirrorjade, when it's activating when it hits the graveyard. It's resolving an end phase, so it would destroy. I absolutely think I butchered that explanation. I do think I'm right, though. Let me know if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure Mirrorjade would destroy the Black Luster Soldier, because even though it is not activating, it's not an activated effect that's targeting. The activation already occurred. It is just resolving, and it's not unaffected by the resolution of it. I probably didn't say that properly. You know what I mean. Maybe you don't. I know what I mean, kind of.
This can lead to a number of mistakes from less experienced players, and a few slight weird rulings. First off, you can't negate Mirrorjade's effect when it actually resolves. In fact, it doesn't even go onto the chain. It just applies during the end phase. This isn't super impactful, but if you have effect negation, you need to remember to use it earlier on in the turn. Another implication of this is that even if you do negate the effect of Mirrorjade after the effect has resolved, it won't actually stop the end phase pop from going off. This is because, as far as the game is concerned, the effect has already resolved. Negating your opponent's Ash Blossom after it's already negated your Rhoda isn't suddenly going to let you add a card from your deck to your hand, and it's the same thing here. As far as the game is concerned, all that Mirrorjade's effect does is put that lingering effect into play, so negating it afterward won't remove that lingering effect from play. This little wrinkle also explains another very strange interaction. You see, cards that would negate an effect that destroys a card, like My Body is a Shield or Stardust Dragon, can't actually negate Mirrorjade, because once again, its effect doesn't technically destroy anything. It just puts a lingering effect into play, and if that effect will end up destroying something, it's of no concern to Mirrorjade.
I'm guessing too, it's because it says you can destroy all monsters your opponent controls during the end phase. It's not mandatory. There's no guarantee. It's just a lingering effect, and like you get so it's activating when it goes to grave. But you get the choice at the end. I am curious if could I Endymion? 2 parts. If the Regulus is on field, is it considered marked for destruction? So could I not send the Endymion from field to prevent the destruction of my board from Mirrorjade? Side question, if I have a Regulus in hand, could I send it to prevent during end phase? I think I could, but also this whole, like, video explain, me listen, brain go, huh? I kind of get it. Like, I think what's happening is the effect is to give you the choice at end phase to destroy all monsters. It's not currently destroying. It's just activating to be, it's like Bestial Magma. Like, I think when Mirrorjade, it does activate, right? If this fusion, do you have to activate Mirrorjade though? Like, I know Magma, like you have to be like Magma effect search at end phase. Do you have to, on the trigger, be like Mirrorjade, but we'll resolve it later? Like, do you have to say you're doing the Mirrorjade activation?
As far as the game is concerned, things get a little strange here because there's a very similar situation with a very different ruling. If your opponent activates Bestial Magma Hut's effect to search during the end phase, you can actually Ash Blossom that effect. This is thanks to how the cards are worded though. Stardust Dragon checks if the effect would destroy a monster on the field. However, Ash Blossom checks if the effect includes adding a card from deck to hand. While none of the rulings with Mirrorjade or other cards that work similarly are that confusing or strange, the fact that there are just so many and the effect is so unintuitive earns it a spot on this list. And at number 5, we have Infinite Loop Rulings. This is a ruling that actually changed over the years, but it's going to take a bit before we can get into why that is. First, let's explain what we're talking about. Sometimes it's possible to cause an uncontrollable
This came up in the Distant Coder video.
infinite loop in Yu-Gi-Oh!, as well as a controlled infinite loop. For simplicity's sake, let's take a look at Manticore Darkness. This is a Beast Warrior monster with the effect where, during the end phase, if this card was sent to the graveyard this turn, you can send a Beast, Beast Warrior, or Wing Beast monster from your field or hand to the grave to special summon this card. So, if you have a Manticore that was sent to your graveyard this turn, and one either on your side of the field or your hand, you can revive the one in your graveyard during the end phase by sending the second Manticore. This will let you then summon the other Manticore by sending the first, which will then have met its summoning requirement and be allowed to summon itself back. Rinse and repeat ad infinitum. Now, it's important to note that Manticore of Darkness is not a mandatory effect. So the way this would be ruled is that you're simply not allowed to activate it over and over again, as that would be considered slow play. This means that this is a controlled infinite loop. However, there are uncontrolled infinite loops, ones that involve mandatory effects activating or simply applying continuous effects. One of the most famous of these loops has to be with the card Pole Position. This is a continuous trap of the effect where the monster on the field with the highest attack is unaffected by the effects of spell cards. It has another effect, but it's not relevant here. So let's imagine that on the field there's a Dark Magician equipped with Axe of Despair and a Blue Eyes White Dragon on the field. You then activate Pole Position. The Dark Magician would have 3500 attack, would become unaffected by spell effects thanks to Pole Position, which would then remove the 1000 extra attack from the axe. This would then drop its attack down to 2500, meaning that now Blue Eyes would be immune to spell effects. This means that Dark Magician's attack would go back up, which means it would be unaffected again, and the loop would just happen again and again. The ruling nowadays is that the card the judge determines to be the problem card is sent to the graveyard. However, originally the ruling was that you simply
I think that ruling is so funny. They're like, just call someone who took the online test, and they're gonna be like, that one goes to grave. It's like a punishment. It's like, don't do this. Don't do this, because I'm just gonna send your thing to grave.
allowed to activate a card, which would cause an infinite loop. This became an issue because players found a way to make it so their opponent activating any card at all would cause a loop like this one, therefore making it illegal for the opponent to play the game at all. The combination of the storied history, along with just how strange this ruling is to someone who just heard it, earns cards like Pole Position a reputation for being a ruling's nightmare. And at number 4, we have extra deck monsters with unique summoning conditions. This may sound strange at first, but once you start comparing Lady Dragon Maid to Alba Lenitus the Abyss Dragon, it becomes more obvious. Ladies has the effect where it must be special summoned by banishing 2 Dragon Maid monsters you control. One
is my little baby Chorizo gonna make an appearance? Like where you have, you normally, fusion monsters have to be properly fusion summoned, unless it says, right? Like Griffa, I don't know, when I think about like the ritual summoning learn to play video that I just filmed about how this is why it's so hard to say always in Yu-Gi-Oh, because there's going to be something where it's like, ritual monsters have to be properly summoned unless you mind shuffle into a Black Luster Soldier, because then you're fine. Fusion monsters should be fusion summoned unless it's Chorizo and it says monster card, so you can actually use an equipped monster as material.
From your field and 1 from your graveyard with the same attribute but different levels. Alba Lenitus has the effect where it must either be fusion summoned or special summoned by sending its fusion materials from the monster zones to the graveyard. While these cards' effects sound very similar, they have massively different implications. You see, the monsters used to summon Lady's Dragon Maid are considered fusion materials, while the ones used to summon Alba Lenitus are not. This means that if the fusion material...
Well, isn't it because it's saying must either be fusion summoned or special summoned, versus Dragon Maid says must first be special summoned? So if you're not making the distinction between a special summon and a fusion summon, Dragon Maid just considered a fusion summon versus Alba Lenitus, who is making the distinction.
Materials are hit with a card like no material, or more likely Forbidden Crown, you wouldn't be able to use them to summon Lady Dragon Maid. But you could use them to summon Alba Lenitus as long as you're using its alternative summoning method. What makes this the most strange is that both methods of summoning Alba Lenitus are considered properly summoning the monsters, which is very unintuitive to the average player. Whether a card is properly summoned determines whether or not it can be summoned by card effects once it leaves the battlefield. The easiest way to know if something is properly summoning a monster is if it's a summoning condition or an activated effect, as activated effects don't properly summon the monster. What makes this so confusing at first glance is the simple fact that the language used on cards, like Lady's Dragon Maid and Alba Lenitus, look very similar. They both say to special summon the monster, and neither of them refer to the summon as a fusion summon. You would think the ruling...
Well, this is also, what's that Crimson, it was getting played in chess Elf Note, because there's the whole like, oh, you can't use it for a synchro summon, but sending cards to graveyard is not considered synchro summoning, it's like special summoning. So I'm assuming it's the same thing, where it's like, because it says by sending the above cards from any monster zone to the graveyard, that's not considered fusion summoning, because it's special summoning by sending. Maybe?
Would be the same across all these cards, but the fact that it isn't can cause a lot of confusion. And at number 3, we have Colossal Fighter versus Ultimate Tyranno. This is an infinite loop ruling, but one that's very slightly different to how the previous ones work, as it involves effects from 2 different players that are both debatably equally problematic.
Okay, this looks like the scene for a movie. We got Colossal Fighter. This card gains 100 attack for every warrior type monster in the graveyard. When this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can target 1 warrior type monster in either graveyard special summon. This card can attack all monsters your opponent controls once each. During your battle phase, if you control an Ultimate Tyranno that can attack monsters other than Ultimate Tyranno cannot attack. Okay, what's the loop?
Colossal Fighter is a synchro monster with a couple effects. But important here is that when it's destroyed by battle, you can target a warrior monster in your graveyard and special summon it. Now, Fighter himself is a warrior monster. You can revive him with its own effect. Ultimate Tyranno is a monster with the effect where it can attack all of your opponent's monsters once each. However,
What's considered a new copy, right? So you still just attack into, because they went to the graveyard. He came back. He's back. He's different. He's new. He saw death and he came back.
this is after an errata, as the original version of the card was forced to attack all of your opponent's monsters once each. This is very important for how this interaction plays out. It was ruled back in the day that if Ultimate Tyranno attacked a monster like Mystic Tomato, which could summon another monster when destroyed by battle, that Tyranno would be forced to attack that monster as well. This means that if it had attacked and destroyed Colossal Fighter by battle, and then it revived itself, it would be forced to attack it and destroy it by battle again. This would trigger Colossal Fighter again, so it could revive itself, and it would just be forced to infinitely attack into Colossal Fighter. The question is whether or not your opponent infinitely reviving Colossal Fighter would be considered slow play, and from a more modern perspective, it likely would be. Things get even weirder from here though. In modern Yu-Gi-Oh! With the errata, both the Ultimate Tyranno player and the Colossal Fighter player technically have the choice to stop this loop. The question is who the burden of slow play would fall onto in this scenario, and the rulebook, as it is written currently, doesn't say which player would be at fault. This is a very specific scenario that honestly wouldn't ever actually come up in practice, which is why there isn't an official ruling on which player would be forced to stop activating their effect. Not a super impactful ruling, but a very curious one nonetheless. And at number 2, we have what monsters remember. This refers to what will make a monster forget certain things that it did or effects that were...
Oh, I've had to learn. I feel like I should be taking notes to also like make videos about some of this stuff, because specifically thinking about Snow and Weaver. So Fairy Tale Weaver, or Weaver of Fairy Tales, for those of you who don't know, says that when a non-Earth fairy tale is summoned, you can negate a monster on field and rename it Prince Fairies. Fairy Tale Snow says you can basically Book of Moon a monster. If you choose to negate and rename and then Book of Moon, it is now forgotten the fact that it is negated and renamed. So when things go face down, negations are forgotten, renames are forgotten. I'm pretty sure that thing forgets everything. I'm not sure what gets remembered when stuff gets flipped face down, if anything gets remembered.
Apply to it. The easiest example of this is soft once per turn effects. If a monster with a soft once per turn leaves the field and then comes back, such as by being tributed and then resummoned, it will then be able to use its soft once per turn effect again.
So Luna, I can keep. Luna has a soft once per turn. The same Luna that goes on field, that then goes to grave, that then is resummoned off of Once Upon a Fairy Tale, can keep doing the bounce thing.
Regardless as if it's used it or not previously. This is because once a card leaves the field and then comes back, or even just goes from one place to another, regardless if it's the hand, field, or graveyard, it's treated as an entirely different card. At least for the most part. A monster that was banished temporarily will remember certain attributes, such as if it was or was not pendulum summoned. A monster that's flipped face down will remember certain attributes about its past. However, critically, and most annoyingly, they will remember different things. A monster that got flipped face down will not remember if it was pendulum summoned, but it will remember if it declared an attack that turn or if its battle position changed that turn. While remembering all this can be very daunting, luckily, members of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community have made some handy charts to help you remember what your cards do.
Don't show me a chart. Okay, I'll look at the chart. If it's flipped face down, it remembers which copies of card were used to perform the summon, if the battle position was changed, if it had attacked that turn. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense because you can snow on attack declaration and it doesn't get... Well, it's face down, it couldn't attack anyway. I'm not sure necessarily why that one would come up. If it was set, how it was summoned, and the turn that it happened, that's not that much.
Or do not remember. Do keep in mind that this is entirely different if a monster was banished and then resummoned rather than temporarily banished, just to make this all more extra confusing. And finally, at number 1, we have Nibiru versus Kaiser Coliseum. This is a very specific ruling, so we need to understand how these specific cards work. Nibiru has the effect where, if your opponent has summoned 5 or more monsters this turn, during the end phase you contribute as many face-up monsters on the field as you can, then special summon this card from your hand. And if you do, you special summon to your opponent's field a token with attack and defense equal to the combined attack and defense of all the monsters you attributed. Kaiser Coliseum is an infamous continuous spell with a floodgate effect. It says that if you have at least one or more monsters, your opponent cannot place monsters on the field if it would result in them controlling more monsters than you. Though this does nothing to monsters that they already control. The ruling is that if your opponent summons 5 or more times in their turn, and they control a face-up monster that can be attributed and no monsters that are face down or cannot be attributed, you cannot activate Nibiru at all.
Right? Like, because it's checking, because that would force the Kaiser Coliseum to not be legal anymore, because now wait, hold on. If there's one or more monster on the field of the controller of this card, his or her opponents cannot place a monster on the field if his or her number of monsters would exceed, because you summon yours first before you summon their token, right?
This is very strange for a number of reasons. At the time, when you try to activate Nibiru, and at the time it resolves, you will not control more monsters than your opponent. So you should be allowed to activate Nibiru. Even after it tributes your opponent's entire board, they no longer control a monster, so you should be allowed to summon Nibiru. The only way this works is if Kaiser Coliseum can see that you will be, at one point, be putting a monster onto the field while they control no monsters, but not realize its effect should stop applying at that point. While this ruling doesn't really affect that many different cards, it's such a weird ruling for such a common card in Nibiru that
I feel like it's because it says special summon this card from your hand, then special summon one primal being token. So at one point you will have more monsters than them.
It couldn't possibly be anywhere, but
no, because if there's one or more monster on the field of this card, his or her can come if his or her must receive. Oh, yeah, never mind. That doesn't make any sense.
At the top of the list.
That was it. Alphonse got mad. Yeah, actually, okay. I didn't get mad. Alphonse got mad. Sir. Are you done? Okay. Okay, that video did not irritate me kind of as much as I thought. There was a smidge of it because I just hate Konami says. But overall, I think that did bring up really good things to know, especially playing in a format where snow is around and so things getting flipped face down. Knowing like what properly summoned is, like just in general, I mean, it says top 10 weird ruling interactions. I don't know if necessarily they were all weird. They were probably circumstantial, but I think some of them come up more than we would assume. So I think it had good information. So good recommendation. Yeah, if anyone has any recommendations for things for me to react to, let me know. I'm going to try to hold on to the back pocket one of, what was the rule? Wait, what was the ruling I said I was going to remember? What was it? Hold on, let me back it up. Can't reveal a revealed card. That one I'm gonna keep in my brain. Okay, Alphonse is mad because of, as always, I'm filming during his DIN NER, so I gotta go feed him. Yeah. Are you hungry? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We gotta go. Okay, I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.